Stand for the pledge of allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Trustee Bell?
Here.
Trustee Brewer? Here. Trustee Grant?
Here.
Trustee Jazinski? Here. Trustee Todd? Here. Trustee Williams?
Here.
The next item is approval of the minutes.
Are we going to executive session today?
Are we?
Can we? At the end? Can we go in executive session at the end?
What's the deal?
Litigation updates and union negotiations, personnel.
I'll accept the motion.
I make a motion that we go in executive session.
Second.
It's moved by trustee Williams, second by trustee Jazinski. Any questions? Madam Clerk?
I'm sorry, can you state in the motion the purpose for it?
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe I didn't say it correctly, but I said litigation, union negotiations, and personnel. Is that sufficient of a motion? Okay.
Trustee Bell?
Yes.
Trustee Brewer?
Yes.
Trustee Grant?
Yes.
Trustee Jazinski?
Yes.
Trustee Todd?
Yes.
Trustee Williams?
Yes.
Carried.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Bell, second by trustee Todd. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Brewer?
Yes.
Trustee Grant?
Yes.
Trustee Jazinski?
Yes.
Trustee Todd?
Here.
Trustee Williams?
Here.
Trustee Bell?
Yes. Motion carried. Next item is approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes for the public hearing. Okay, for June 19, 2019.
So moved. Second.
Moved by trustee Todd, second by trustee Bell. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Grant?
Yes.
Trustee Jazinski?
Yes.
Trustee Todd?
Yes.
Trustee Williams?
Yes.
Trustee Bell?
Yes.
Trustee Brewer?
Yes.
Motion carried. I'll entertain a motion to approve the special meeting minutes for the public hearing for June 26, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Bell, second by trustee Todd. Any questions? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Jazinski?
Yes.
Trustee Todd?
Yes.
Trustee Williams?
Yes.
Trustee Bell?
Yes.
Trustee Brewer?
Yes.
Trustee Grant?
Yes.
Motion carried. I'll entertain the motion to approve the public hearing minutes for the date of July 2nd, 2019.
So moved. Second.
Moved by trustee Todd, second by trustee Brewer. Are there any questions? Madam Clerk?
Trustee Todd?
Yes.
Trustee Williams?
Yes.
Trustee Bell?
Yes.
Trustee Brewer?
Yes.
Trustee Grant?
Yes.
Trustee Jazinski?
Yes.
Motion is carried. Lastly, I'll entertain a motion for the minutes for the public hearing dated August 8th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Williams, second by trustee Brewer. Are there any questions? Madam Clerk?
Trustee Williams?
Yes.
Trustee Bell?
Abstain.
Trustee Brewer?
Yes.
Trustee Grant?
Yes.
Trustee Jazinski?
Yes.
Trustee Todd?
Abstain.
Someone else was not here that day.
I didn't realize.
You want to change your vote? She's changing her vote to abstain.
Yeah, I forgot it was here.
Motion is carried. Okay, item B is to be excluded and be tabled to another time. Number 5, public comment. All questions and comments must be directed to the mayor. Each speaker may be...
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Over here.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Over here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have to leave in a few minutes.
I don't know
I'm
why.
asking for a point of privilege to see if I can give my reports with the next 4 or 5 minutes before I have to leave.
Okay, so you're asking to have your report now?
Yes, sir.
I'll ask the board, is that okay?
Yes, fine.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, board. Thank you, Mayor.
Treasury report.
This evening, I passed out the cash balances in the respective bank accounts that you have in front of you. As of this evening, in unrestricted funds, we have $3,535,045 of available cash for operations. In restricted funds, as of this evening, we have $1,083,806 in restricted funds. And that's all I have for my treasury report.
Okay. For your finance and administration.
Also, you have in front of you is the accounts payable and payroll disbursement. Payroll as of August 16th was $126,847.25. We are asking for this week's approval to pay accounts payable in the amount of $312,989.92. That's for accounts payable for this week. Within another week or so, just to give you guys a heads up, I'm going to be asking for $120,000 to pay back an Osling grant. I will be providing more information to that within the next 2 or 3 days. One of the reasons, as I told you guys maybe a month ago, we kept accounts payable relatively low, and it's back up to $300,000 because I'm asking for funds to pay into the fire and police pension. In addition to this $320,000, at this point, we still are not having to touch into the line of credit. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Thank you, sir.
No question.
Thank you. Excuse. Thank you. Okay, now we'll take public comment. All questions and comments must be directed to the mayor. Each speaker may comment on any item pertaining to the business or village. Each speaker is allowed 1 opportunity to speak for up to 3 minutes and may not engage in debate, comment, replies, or rebuttals. Please state your name when you come up. When you come up.
Yes, good evening. My name is...
Just 1 second.
Okay.
Thank you, sir, for waiting.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good evening, Mayor Burgess and members of the Village Board of Sauk Village. My name is Tom Joseph, and I represent Main Street and the Illinois Association of Realtors. I serve as the Government Affairs Director on behalf of Main Street and Illinois Realtors in this region. And I'm joined by several members of Main Street and Illinois Realtors. Would you please just acknowledge so the Village Board can see all the members from Main Street. Thank you for coming out tonight as well to our broker family. We're here this evening to discuss the Housing Committee as well as the last 2 meetings. We've appeared before the Housing Committee the last 2 times that it's met in the last 30-plus days. We have several concerns. Mayor Burgess, as you recall, myself and our chairperson at the time, Diane Abel, met with you and Mr. Wizawati over a year ago to go over some of the concerns that may develop, and unfortunately we're here today because things have kind of fallen off the railroad in our view. And so I have been in touch with you, your office, as well as Chairman Jasinski in recent days and weeks in reference to some of the information that I've been getting and pertaining to the village inspection process. in Sauk Village, and we have a lot of concerns. Yesterday, I shared a memorandum with the village board from Sorling Northrop. Sorling Northrop is of counsel to Illinois Realtors and represents all the brokers throughout the state of Illinois through the local associations. So, why are we here? How are we here? We're here in reference to the fact that the village several years ago conducted its own inspection. About 7+ years ago, it took that process away and went to a certification program. We had questions about it at the time because the village of Sauk Village is not a home rule unit of government. Normally our experience on the certifications has been home rule communities that have required certifications, but we understood that the village was moving away from the inspection that they coordinated as a village board, and they went to the certification. So we tried to give that an opportunity. I'm sorry? Yeah, thank you. And so we tried to give that an opportunity to work, but then, as you recall, Mayor, you announced over a year ago, the village announced that it was going to handle an inspection. So, first of all, we find many confusing points of this situation. When I did a Freedom of Information request in July, you had a minimum property standards situation that you shared with me, but then we came to find out that in 2007, you passed the 2006 International Property Maintenance Codes. So that's one aspect that's causing a lot of confusion, and our recommendation is that you repeal one of those at this point, and it probably would be the minimum property standards. Secondly, does the village have the authority to appoint private inspectors? We do not believe you have that authority. You are not a home rule community, first of all. Secondly, Illinois law is very specific about this, in that the village adopted Division 31.1 of the Illinois Municipal Code for administrative adjudication. Yeah.
I'll give you my time.
Oh, thank you. And so the village adopted 31.1 of the Illinois Municipal Code for the administrative adjudication of building code violations. And in doing so, that would prohibit that. Under Division 31.1, a building inspector must be a full-time state, county, or municipal employee whose duties include the inspection or examination of structures or property in a municipality to determine if zoning or other code violations exist. Now, you do have this information that I've shared with you. A state license itself is not adequate under Division 31.1, as one of your staffers was at the last Housing Committee meeting and said that they were state licensees and somehow they could conduct their business this way, and we knew that that was not the case. The village has no enforcement mechanism, and to comply with its administrative adjudication procedures, the village must use full-time county or municipal employees as building inspectors. Is there a limit to the scope of the inspection? No. There is no limit to the scope of inspection. There's a list that's being floated now that identifies 63 items or anything else that the private inspector may identify in the property. 63. I've never heard of that many items in a municipal inspection before. Our inspections authorized for reoccupancy and sales. I want to be very clear here. We do not believe that you have an enabling ordinance, an authorizing ordinance, requiring point-of-sale inspections and/or rental inspections. Right now, the private inspector is unauthorized. He's coming out and he's doing a limitless inspection, and then they charge $300 for that inspection. A $75 fee, which was not passed by this village board, in our view, is applied on the village side. $300, which the village has not authorized, but the private contractor applies, is applied on the front end, and then if there's a reinspection, they charge as well. So this becomes a limitless amount of money that's being provided for a basic inspection, which should be focused on health and safety and minimum standards of the property. The village boards must define when inspections and occupancy certificates are required. No inspection or occupancy certificate requirement can hold up the sale of real property. Now, there is something that we've become aware of more recent.
1 minute again.
In that before you had an occupancy permit. Now, someone has floated, and we don't believe with authorization from the village board, a foreclosing only in red. Foreclosing only in red. And it says Village of Sauk Village foreclosing / transfer of title. There is only one way to get a transfer of title, and that is through a real estate transfer tax, which must be approved by a home rule unit local of government per referendum. There is no other way around that state statute. There is no other way. So we believe that this is violation of state law as well. Are inspection fees valid? As I referenced, we do not believe they are valid because the village board hasn't authorized them. And the village board hasn't authorized the private contractors to engage at that amount. So we don't understand what's taking place. Thank you. Does it? I'll wrap up very briefly.
Give me 1 minute, please.
Yeah, I'll wrap up very briefly. Does an inspector have a right of entry?
Hold on just a second.
Yeah.
Just one second.
Oh, okay, forgive me, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
No, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Does an inspector have a right of entry? I just want to be very clear here. Main Street and Illinois Realtors engage in property rights on behalf of our brokers, property owners, and landlords. The Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution and the Illinois Constitution defends every property owner's right to have the local unit of government seek consent voluntarily to enter property. None of that is being done right now in this village. And everyone is just being told to surrender their property to private contractors who are not authorized legislatively by this village board. And that is not the way it should be conducted. That is not the way it should be conducted. So that, we feel, is a violation of the Constitution as well as statute. Is there an appeal process? Every owner has a right to appeal an inspection to a body designated by the village board. You have approved the adjudication laws of Illinois. So you are to have an appeal process because someone may take issue with what it is that the code enforcement person or the inspector has identified. And so they should have a rightly decided body to go to and an individual to appeal directly per this legislative body, not just designated by someone, but per this legislative body. You have adopted the state statute on that, and you are void of that in this process. So I appreciate the indulgences here. I have a lot more information I could share. I can say honestly and consistently that brokers are reaching out to me on a regular basis. When the village conducted its previous inspection before the search, I was rarely ever contacted, which tells me that the village ran its process efficiently. We shared an inspection report from a neighboring committee at the very first housing committee meeting that we attended. And it's a 2-pager, it's very specific, it outlines what is expected in the inspection process. But I can honestly say in closing that in my 19 years representing the realtors, on behalf of the fine people that are here and the thousands more that are not here tonight, I have never seen a process like this in my life. It has gone upside down. It did not need to be this way because my chairman and I sat down with you and Mr. Wizawati and we shared our concerns. We are not advocates for inspections. Homewood, Flossmoor, South Holland do not engage in point-of-sale inspections. They do not engage in point-of-sale or rental inspections. That is their choice as a unit of local government. There are several other communities that do have an inspection, but they are village inspectors. They are village inspectors, and there's a reason for that, because there's accountability.
That time is up.
So we appreciate the opportunity to address these topics, and we look to work with you, but as far as we're concerned, we feel that there should be a motion made tonight to halt this process until it is all vetted and cleaned up, because this is not the process that we can work with anymore. Thank you very much.
Before we go to the next one, Mr. Joseph, I noticed that you had notes. I can't take them as quick as you read them. Yes. So could you forward those to me so I can look at it?
The memo that I shared with you yesterday, but yes.
But these are some of the things that are different. I just need, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. Over a year
I need
ago...
your name.
I'm sorry. My name's Diane Abel. I'm with Baird & Warner. I'm a real estate agent. I also serve as a member of the board of directors for Main Street Organization of Realtors, representing 18,000 members. Over a year ago, Mayor Burgess and Tom Joseph and I met to discuss Sauk Village's real estate transfer / occupancy inspections. The limits of the inspection, as Tom described, were being expanded, and we were concerned that they would become heavy-handed and overreaching and would cost homeowners money and delay real estate closings. Since that time, over a year ago, we've received complaints that inspections are too extensive and expensive, and the process to getting to closing or occupancy is very unclear. In some instances, a seller or buyer responded to an inspection by doing repairs, only to have a new list of issues flagged during a reinspection. How do you get to the closing if you keep going over and over with inspections? How long does it take? How much does it cost? Because of the nature of private inspections, it's nearly impossible to have a 100% satisfactory report. The current Sauk Village checklist has 63 items, but inspectors can flag any other issues they choose to that are not on the inspection checklist. This is too broad a scope for a municipal inspection. I visited the Sauk Village website to look to see how clear it was to residents what are they supposed to do when they try and transfer property. The only thing I could find on the website was an old resident handbook, which had one paragraph on page 23 citing the old requirement to get certifications for roof, heating, plumbing, and electricity. In summary, the Sauk Village requirements are not clear. The private inspections are too extensive and too expensive, especially compared to other municipalities. And all of the uncertainty surrounding these inspections will result in lower sale prices as buyers are very risk averse. Therefore, Sauk Village should stop the inspection program now until it has a clear requirement with reasonable goals and sufficient due process. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. My name is Brenda Perry. I'm a homeowner on Maryburn Drive here in Sauk Village. The reason I'm here this evening is because no one in this village returns phone calls. I've called the mayor's office 4 times, City Works Department 4 times. I come to the village to speak to someone. Nothing's been done. My home on Maryburn Drive sits in front of a retention pond. When I purchased my home, I thought, oh, what a beautiful scenery to watch the deer in the morning as I have my cup of coffee. Now what I look at are 5 feet of weeds. We cannot enjoy our backyard because of mosquitoes. We cannot let our dog out because of the wild dogs that run through our neighborhood. We have potholes. I pay over $9,000 in property taxes. And basically my question is why? Why don't you all return calls? When I walk through here during the day, I see nothing being done. No one working unless someone's in line to pay their water bill, which I don't have to remind anyone is enormous. Why? When will the weeds be cut down? I have a wedding planned in my home on Labor Day, and the scenery will be 5 feet of weeds unless I pay a private company to come cut down what you all won't do your job to do. Where are my $9,000 going? So, one answer I did get, the potholes was a temporary fix. Well, we're facing another winter. Your temporary fix is gravel that goes underneath my vehicle every time I drive down Sauk Trail. Every time I drive down Maryburn Drive. My address is 904 Maryburn Drive. I want the weeds cut down. If I need to pay someone to cut them down, I will bring a bill to this village every single day, poster size. And I'm gonna bring it in here to remind you all, what a waste of my taxpayer dollars. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and the board. My name is Arnold Coleman. Mr. Mayor, it's been 90 days since the installment of the trustees that you have before you, and there hasn't been a budget passed, okay? How can we continue to spend money, and we are still spending money without a budget? And thirdly, how can an administrator whom we just hired, how can they be paid without a budget? And as far as the Illinois Realty Association, I can understand the plight, but no inspections, no way. You gotta have inspections. So, you know, hopefully we'll get it all straightened out, but to have no inspections, that doesn't make any sense.
Thank you for your time. My name is Tim Ryan. I'm a real estate agent. I'm also a broker owner for Real People Realty. I manage 560 agents that sell property in this town. I'm also a homeowner. My daughter lives in this town, and I also have several rental properties in this town as well. Really, my point of coming up tonight is really just to again give you an example of how the current city inspection process is affecting. Well, I'm just going to give you an example of what happened to me. I did have I've had rental inspections here before, occupancy inspections done, point of sale inspections done. I've been through all of the process that our realtors are explaining to you. The most recent episode that I had was an inspection that I had on a property that was built here in 1967. We had several issues that were brought up during the inspection, completely understandable issues some of those were completely understandable. Though there were a couple though that really I feel like maybe overstepped a little bit, and or even greatly. One of them was a power line that was coming into the back of the property that had been on that property and in the location on that property since the house was built in 1967. There's 100 amp feet coming into that property. The inspector told me that the power line needed to be moved because it was too close to a window and it was hanging too low to the deck. And I said, well, it's interesting because this deck, when it was built, was also permitted and inspected, and that power line was there when the deck was built. And he says, you got to move the power line. And I said, he says, somebody can reach up, they can touch that power line, it's got to be moved. I came in, I talked to Mr. Wazwadi at the time, and he said, my inspector says you got to move it. And I said, okay, well, that was a $3,800 move to move that power line. And so, even though my argument was, that the power line had been there since 1967, that $3,800 move wasn't just a move of a power line, it was delay of occupancy, which cost more additional money, in addition to a couple other things that happened during that inspection, which were questionable as well. One was fire blocking under the stairs. I literally bought the house, painted the house, and called for an inspection. That's all I really had to do with that house when I got it. This inspection didn't lead up to, a better standard necessarily of safety or a better home. The things that needed to be done weren't things that were seen. They were arguably whether or not they were even safety issues, since that power line existed since 1967. And then also, if I were remodeling this house, I could understand that. I'll leave it at that. Thank you for your time.
Hello, thank you all. Thank you, Mayor Burgess. My name is Jermaine Coney. I am the managing broker partner of Premier Midwest Realty. I manage about 55 agents who all service the South Suburban and surrounding area. I am here tonight because the current process that you all have implemented, and I personally attempted to buy a property before this process was implemented, so I do know the difference between what was and what is now. But this particular process has halted investors that I personally represent who were not here to gouge the property values and gouge the incoming purchaser, because my investors were not-for-profit. The homes that they purchased were purchased at a minimum price and would only be upgraded at a minimum amount to be serviced to the incoming buyer who would have the opportunity to own a home in a decent area at a decent price. The current process has deterred them to the point where they're no longer interested, and their goal was to purchase everything they possibly could in Sauk Village at a lower price, mind you, not gouge the customer who would come in and purchase. So we're not talking about a money-grabbing investor. We're talking about a person that would have cut down weeds next door to one of the already existing residents because they own property. But because of the process and its rigor, not that rigor is a bad thing, not that inspections are not what we want, because the goal here is to have properties that everyone can afford to live in, and have residents that are happy to have those occupants. So I'm not at all pushing for an investor to come in, buy up all your land and gouge all the prices and push out your residents. I'm representing an investor that came in with a good heart and saw the process and saw how it affected the operation. And you know, I could go into the renovation water that we're required to pay, because that goes into it. Because if your inspector has to come back out, or I'm sorry, the private inspector, that nobody knows if he's even doing what's right, we have to pay that fee per day. And it stopped an investor that honestly had an infinite amount of funds for what they were doing. That's all.
Hello, I'm Paul Kempa, managing broker, owner. My name is Paul Kempa, managing broker, owner of Realty One Group. We own properties in the city and manage for many other investors in the city. After hearing all the information today, I guess the biggest question I have an inspection tomorrow. Are these inspections legal at this point, knowing the information that we've heard today? I know from our past experience with the inspectors, they'll come out, they'll cite us on a violation. When I ask what the code is, they don't know what the code is. They're citing 2014 building codes. You guys are not on 2014 building codes. When he asks stuff about plumbing, they're citing City of Chicago plumbing code, which you guys do not, support. So going forward, I guess the biggest question are what you're doing is legal, and if it's not, let's come to some agreement either to stop it or go in the right direction. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Val Hutchellis. I am a general manager of Remax 10 with a little over 200 agents also selling in this community. I think one of the things that we want to clarify is that we're not saying we don't want an inspection. We're wanting a process that is legal and fair to all of the homeowners. That's what we're looking for, and direction. One of my agents closed a property that sold at $150,000. It wasn't a little fixer-upper. It was a very nice home in Sauk Village. A doctor owned this home, and he had the sale stopped and couldn't go forward to close his transaction because no one knew what they were supposed to do. I mean, the process needs to be clear to homeowners and to realtors so that we can help our clients along the way with that. And it needs to be fair and legal. This is the only community that we have ever experienced anything like this. We are asking for an updated set of rules for your inspection process. That's all. Thank you.
Hello, Mayor Burgess. I'm Deborah Johnston from Remax 2000 in Crate. I had talked about 22407 Yates. My client Joanna had gotten up here 2 months ago talking about her inspection. She has still not passed her inspection, even though they've done all the repairs. The guy was out last week and said, "Ooh, I smell mold now." Okay, so he performed his own mold test, sent it off to whoever he thinks he should send it off to, and came back and said, "You have mold in this house and I now have proof. But I do mold remediation too." Oh my gosh, right? So he said, but she said, "I think that you have something against me, honestly. Are you racist?" She said, "Because I feel like, because I'm this little Mexican lady, you're taking advantage of me." She said, "What do I need to pay you?" He goes, "I'm gonna do the remediation for free." Yeah, right. Okay, he said, "You're gonna pay $250 for the re-inspection for the mold to prove that I can get rid of it for you." Yeah, so that's really not the only thing going on here. My clients are continually purchasing permits for rehabbed properties for rental inspections. They already paid for all this stuff. So where's all that money going? I mean, it's like we're taking the money from the people for things that they already paid for permits. If you buy a permit, it's for the work that was done then. If you buy a permit now, what is it for now? Stick it in a folder somewhere. It doesn't make any sense. So there's really a lot of things going on out there. I did want to mention also that recently my clients were asked to pressure wash, seal coat the driveway, add additional installation in the attic. I mean, there is really just a ton of things, just ridiculous things being asked for by there. And I really don't have anything else to say, but I really think that this is unlawful to the people, realistically.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Village Board. I'm Jennifer Schobloom. I'm also a realtor representing Main Street Organization of Realtors and the Vice Chair of the Government Affairs Committee. We have a lot of concerns, obviously, as we have voiced today. Parlaying onto the private home inspectors, there's a safety issue there too for your residents. That is not a municipal employee going to those homes. Nobody knows who is entering their home. Nobody knows who that village inspector is, what company they were ordered from, who's knocking on their door, and who are they letting in their house. There was just an article in the paper the other day about an 89-year-old woman who somebody posing as a city inspector broke into her home. Well, she gave consent thinking it was the village inspector, and they burglarized her home. You have a safety issue now, and you're putting the village at risk because that is not your employee. You have not vetted these people. You do not work for the village. Furthermore, that is obviously just one issue. What we are asking for is for you to have a legislative ordinance authorizing the village inspections, which we do not believe you have right now, to suspend this process until everything has been figured out. Because right now we do believe on various accounts the village is operating illegally. And we, as the realtor community, cannot operate this way. It is not fair to your residents. So we are asking you to halt this process, figure it out, and then let's work together to create an inspection process that is fair and equal for your residents and real estate community and the village. Thank you. Good evening.
Judy Cast here. At or about the time that you decided to get rid of the person that was doing the inspections, and you put somebody else in place, I stood up here and I asked you about his qualifications. What is his resume? Is he qualified to do what he does? Is he certified to do what he does? I asked you all kinds of questions. I got no answer. I FOIA'd it. And I was told in the first response that they needed 5 more days to get the paperwork together. Well, at the end of the next week, I got another letter. And that letter said, the paperwork that I'm seeking does not exist. So we've asked about this man that goes around and does these inspections and what his qualifications are. And if he knocks on my door, he's in trouble. He won't get in my house. We've asked and we can't get answers from you. And now the real estate people are here with the same issues. At the last Housing Committee meeting, investors were told by our employee that if they didn't want to go through inspections, that other people will spend their money here. That's a really nice thing to say to people that are trying to help us out. We have no right to be that rude to the people that are doing homes in the village. We have more empty homes now than we've ever had in the over 50 years that I've been here. And it's not acceptable if we're doing it in the manner in which it's being done now.
1 minute, please.
That's all I have to say.
I think we need to get Marva a flag because we can't see when she's ready back behind her big screen. Anyway, my name is Pat Couch. I'd like to change tune here just a smidgen, and I'd like to thank our police department. First of all, Officer Luke, as well as all the other officers. They've had a really tough week, and I know we'll probably hear a report, but I think that they do need to be recognized. And also our fire department. There was an incident that we all know about that was really sad. We had a murder in our village. Not the first time, won't be the last, I'm sure. After that situation, and those officers were out there on that street protecting us residents. There was another call in Ford Heights. Many of our firemen, not all of them, but many, were out in Ford Heights for extended hours. We need to thank those firemen. Number one, Mr. Ed Myers, for out there hours upon end after the situation with the police department. Then the fire department was called to Ford Heights. We need to give them a big thank you for that. Thank you.
Frank Williams. I have, say the senior building over there, where those seniors is, that the key have been taken away from the president of the Bluegrass. And I don't understand why was that done, because those people are seniors. They are old, and for them to have to come and cross that driveway out there at night when ice is all over that bear. He fell once. We thought somebody had beat him half to death. But he didn't sue him, he didn't do anything. But my thing is this: how can you put a resident over another resident? You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be one of those trustees over that building over there to tell the people when they can come in. And he needs a key so he can get in and out himself. The second thing is, I like to know what the word reserve money means. Because every time I ask about this, well, it's this and it's that. But I asked you once and I'm asking you again, otherwise I'm going to spoil it. I'd like to know how many banks do we have, how much money do we have, and how come come every time I turn around, you talk about we can't get this done and we can't get this done? I mean, you got to understand, we come here every Tuesday night to listen to the business at hand. And for us to come up here and sit here for 3 or 4 hours and then nothing is getting done, that is not fair to us. So I can't make no suggestion, but what I'm saying is you need to seriously think about what you heard tonight. Very seriously about what you heard tonight. Thank you.
My name is Zanona Ayers, and I am a resident of Carlisle Estates. I will address my comments or questions to these administration. 2 weeks ago, I found out that the village is proposing to change the zoning from R1 residential to C3 commercial to accommodate a truck repair shop. I have been walking for days getting feedback from the residents of Carlisle Estates. My walk showed that the residents are not in agreement to bringing this new project to their community. The residents feel that this truck repair shop will produce more air pollution, noise pollution, possible contamination to well 3. Should any spillage result from oil, gas, antifreeze, and whatever chemicals that exist in that facility. Research has shown that oil in one oil change has shown that oil, I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself, has shown that oil in one oil change can, if it gets into the ground, contaminates 1 million gallons of fresh water. Now let us think about that. The residents also complaining of the water situation that existed in 2012 with vinyl chloride, fear that this scenario could happen once again. Due to these and many more possibilities of harm from this truck repair shop, I implore this board to please vote no when it comes before you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm Francine Anderson, and of course I live at 1606 216th Street. I am here, first meeting in a long time, seeing that we've had new trustees in the last 90 days. I welcome you, but I am totally against some of the decisions that I've heard and some of the information that I have received at my home. I am greatly concerned about 2 things I've heard tonight. One is the realtors, and they came in representing over about, I guess, 1,000 people from what I've added right here, 1,000 realtors, but I am like the other gentleman. I definitely say we need some type of inspections. I don't know what happened to the inspections. When I was on the housing committee, we had inspections. So I don't know what faltered, and I don't understand which ordinance you say we don't have, but I can guarantee you we had one. The exact number and days, I can't tell you that, but I did sit on the housing committee and we do have an ordinance. So to say that it's illegal, maybe it is, maybe it's not, but I know one existed. And I can tell you that from experience. Secondly, we have the attorneys here. The attorneys, I understand, is back at meetings, and I am totally against that unless we need them. I understand that now the Olison and Sturk's fees have doubled and tripled what they are making, mainly because they're sitting here in meetings all the time. I only know by rumors because, of course, this is my first meeting, and I'll say that again, but I guarantee you 2 things. I'll be back. And when I come back, I'll be factual and to the point. The other thing is, whenever we have a resident that comes to talk about having to have a public property mowed so she can have something at her home, that is disgusting. And I think there's something that can be corrected and easily corrected. The other thing I would say to you is that the rumors of the voting, and how you all have made some changes. I'm hoping that you're making them in the best interest of the homeowners. I've heard a lot of negatives, and I'm hoping that we can have some positives and make sure that those positives outweigh the negatives. I'm interested as a homeowner, and being here since 1985, as many of you have, I have seen economic development under the past administration of the last election more than I've seen in the years that I've been here. So for those who have a lot of complaints and a lot of issues, I think we all have our own ways of being heard and being seen, so we will continue that. But I guarantee you I will be back to address some of those issues to the realtors. I will hope that you will talk to our attorneys and have them also research for you that the ordinance that do definitely exist. I am definitely interested in whatever we are doing that our impact fee monies do not go to help realtors to move other people into properties, but it goes to help the current homeowners that are currently here, who are mainstays of our community and will still continue to be here, no matter how long they've been and no matter how long they have planned to stay. The other thing I would also like to acknowledge, 2 words, thanks to the police department for their recent
Redonna Brown. Good evening, Mayor, Village Clerk, and trustees. I want to publicly thank you all. I completed a school supply drive on August 17th for the students of Sauk Village. I just want to thank you all for your generous donations to the Mayor, First Lady, Ms. Campbell Pruitt, the entire fire department, Dollar General, and American Family Restaurant, as well as the Senior Advisory Committee. We were able to assist close to 200 students with school supplies, and the rest of the school supplies were donated, and our school board president was donated to the different schools. I just want to thank you all.
Okay. Just want to say, first of all, I really appreciate the investors, brokers, real estate agents that came out and expressed their concerns. It did not go on deaf ears. I did not attend. I had heard about your meetings, but I didn't get a chance to attend them. But I will tell you this, we will go back since, I think someone said it's been 7 years or even longer since these ordinances were updated and the inspection process was actually updated. So we will take into that consideration, and we will go back to the drawing board with it. We have a committee, and then we will come up with the ordinances that apply to today. That being said, there's a lot of things that were words that were used, and I kind of take offense to some of those things, but all in all, the person that we were talking about is no longer here anymore, so we will have a new person. That being said, we will update. And I am also against not having any inspections. I think there should be inspections in every, and I'm sure they are in every village, to inspect when the person wants to move in, that they have some type of inspection by the village. And I did listen to that you wanted and that's something that you wanted a municipal inspector. I don't think we ever had a person that, since I've been trustee, that actually was an employee and an inspector at the same time. We had inspections done, but not a municipal employee. We had outside firms doing it, so that's something we can look at. I will, well, one last thing before I get to the next one. I will look into that process. And I said I want Mr. Joseph to give me some of the things that he did email me some of his points. And once we get this put on paper, then we will have to present it to our lawyers to let them to make sure that we're doing everything correctly and go forth from there. So that's something that we will try to work on right away. As far as someone asked, can we vote tonight to suspend inspections? No, we cannot. Sad to say that, but we only can vote on things that are on the agenda at this particular point. But everything that you did say, I wrote it down, and when we get the board, not the board, but the committee together, we'll get the notes that I have and the notes that Mr. Joseph has and some of the other people that made remarks. We'll get those things together. For the person that had the grass, first of all, I'm sorry that if it is back there behind, I think I know where you're talking about, but I need to talk to that person after tonight if they can. If not, I'll go down to their house and personally talk to them, because I think some of the information that they said is not correct, but I'm not going to be the one, I'm not going to go back and forth, but I will address that issue to that particular resident myself and kind of let them understand, because I think some of the things they quoted were, I don't know if someone told them, it was a little misleading, but I will try to, to the best of my ability, to be able to at least let them know how it's done. We talked about the key for the senior center, I think 3 meetings ago or 2 meetings ago. The senior center is ran by the residents. They have a senior board. I try not to step, and I don't want to step on people's feet or toes or anything. If you put a person in charge of something, that's what you do. To say that you don't want a person that's a resident to be in charge of a building, that's happened years and years since I've been here. So I'm just unfortunate that the person failed, but we don't give keys out to people to take home. We just don't do that. As far as the truck repair shop, we talked about that last week. And when the zoning board has their meeting, you're welcome to come, express, bring your residents, bring your neighbors out to discuss and bring that before the zoning board. Their recommendation board, they recommend to the board their recommendations whether to bring it from R1, which is residential, to a commercial C3. That's a recommendation that they recommend the board, and then the board, as I said 2 weeks ago, will make their decision and vote on it whether or not to adhere to that. So that's is not something that is voted on by the zoning board. They just listen. They listen to what both sides. They listen to the investor, and they also listen to the residents, and they take those things into consideration. And everything else, like I stated before, I appreciate the comments from the investors. Contrary to the fact you guys do pay taxes and you're part of the village because you have a home here. So I'm not going to discount the fact, and I'm not going to say that, that you don't matter. Yes, you do. Your homeowners also, you have a vested interest in the village. So that being said, we will pass it on. We'll get it started to get this ordinance and these laws updated and go forth from there. And that's going to start within a week. That being said, we'll go to next item is report. I don't have anything other than to make a comment, and I don't know how to put this, but I'm glad we have an audience here. I'm glad that we have the investors here. It starts here in the village. Everyone's saying, well, we had shots fired. People are shooting at one another. What can you do, Mayor? Can you stop the shooting? What do we have to do? it starts with the residents, because the police department only sees it when it happens. The residents see it before it happens because they can call the police if they see something that's, and they have to step up and say, I want to either press charges or I want to file a complaint. But if we turn deaf ear on what's going on and then it happens, now it's, oh, wow, that's a shame. What can you do? We have to be proactive. We have to be proactive in when we see, because we know you have neighbors next door. You know that neighbor is not doing what is right. You don't have to, you can be anonymous. The police department will take anonymous tips. But you have to say something. Don't wait till it happens and then come back and say, well, we should have done this and we should have done that. Or why don't you do this, and can't the police stop the shooting? It takes a village, as was said before. But it's unfortunate that it's happened, but it's happening all over, not just in Sauk Village, it's happening all over. People have guns, they're shooting, that's a coward's way out, but that's what we have right now, that's what we have to deal with, that's the hand we dealt. But if you see something suspicious, call the police. And if you don't want to give your name, fine, but at least then make them aware. Don't just come to the meetings and say, well, we had a shooting down the street and what can you do about it? I mean, you know, that's something that's, I don't feel it's proper. If I see something in my neighborhood or something like that, I'm sure everyone here, see something, call. The police can only react. They cannot act. They cannot stop a bullet. They come after the fact. So, you know, a lot of people, I've been criticized by saying, you know, a lot of times, well, you know, that you're the mayor, how come you can't stop this and can't stop that, and why do we still have shootings? Still have guns. That's why we have shootings. There's nothing I don't know who can answer anything to that effect. So that being said, I know Ms. Debbie Williams is going to have some things that she's going to tell you about, some upcoming events. I just wanted to say on the 7th of September, that's going to be on a Saturday, there will be the annual corn and dog roast. So come out for that particular event. And there's going to be some other events before that she's going to address in her report. There's going to be one Monday, and there's going to be one again Saturday. This coming Saturday? Okay, this coming Saturday. So she'll tell you on both of them, but the corner dog roast, which everything will be on the marquee. And does everyone know where the marquee is located? Because you only see it one way as you come into the village. But there should be some flyers passed out, and there should be some flyers passed out for the corner dog roast. That being said, next item, Madam Clerk.
Mayor, may I just hand out the memo that we shared yesterday to you?
Okay, can you give it to Kevin for me instead of, thank you. I get it from you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have just a couple of things that I would like to mention. And the first one is to you, the trustees, but then also all of our residents. We've been talking about Code Red. Code Red is up and functional. However, we really don't have anyone to provide our emergency notifications to when there is an issue because we don't have your name, phone number, and or email address. So on the back table, the one that's to my left as I'm facing the door now, there is a document, it's a contact sheet, and it is asking how would you like to be notified if there is an emergency or an issue that's occurring in the village. You can give us your home phone number, your mobile phone number. We can also accommodate TTYs, and or we can notify you through your email. So I'm going to ask that those residents that are here that would like to receive these notifications, because this is a choice
But you know, you guys asked for this, but if you could fill this document out and get it back to the village clerk, I would greatly appreciate it. We talked about rain barrels in the past, and in order to get a rain barrel, they wanted us to conduct raffles at every event. Well, I'm considering today an event, okay? So, also in the back is a pledge form that looks like this. They want you to take a pledge by checking off the items that you're willing to do to help our water and its environment. And so in doing so, though, so that you can be considered for the rain barrels, I need your name, your address, your city, your phone, and email, and that's what will go into the drawing for consideration for you to get a free water barrel. On most of these sheets, they do not have a place for your address, so if you would write your address at the very bottom, I would greatly appreciate it. The last thing I would want to talk about is our partnership meeting that's taking place tomorrow here at the village at 3 o'clock. And on the agenda, we have a representative from the United States Census who will be walking us through a presentation, but then we're also combining that meeting with our regular partnership meeting, and at that time we will be solidifying plans for our November event, which is going to be a luncheon for those who are homeless, those who are seniors, and those who just really want to be here with us. There is no fee for that, and we are planning for about 100 people, but we still have to plan. So that's what we're going to work on tomorrow, as well as our December holiday cheer. We're going to start kicking that off as well. So I'm hoping to see some of you, not all, but some of you is greatly appreciated, because I know everybody can't do everything. But Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Village Engineer, Mr. Jim Zarnik.
Thank you, Mayor. Public Works completed the water main repair on 221st Street last week, so work by Iroquois Paving resumed. Excavation for curbs, sidewalks, and driveways was conducted last week, and concrete work will be performed this week. Paving of the street will then follow. That concludes my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Village Attorney, Mr. Mike McGrath.
Thank you, Mayor. No report.
Village Administrator, Mr. Christopher Williams.
First of all, I want to say good evening to the residents, the mayor, the board, and staff. I just want to go ahead and just say I had the opportunity to meet with the mayor and every trustee to present his or her concerns, suggestions, and future fiscal recommendations for addressing the current budget impasse. I am equally grateful for everyone's willingness to be receptive to my initial thoughts. I presented my final recommendations and document which represents the truest form of a compromise for fiscal year 2019 and 2020 based on stated concerns. As stated before, I think this might make a sense. As stated before, I examined the competing budget presented by the mayor and the trustees through the following: our village residents, operations and structural realignment for the village for its current and future needs, greater accountability and process improvement, revenue management, enhancement and future cost savings, as well as employee fairness and morale. So I'm grateful to have that opportunity to work on it and still know there's some things we're working on. In addition, within my role as the village administrator, I have also initiated the following: departmental meetings and review of expectations and targeted goals, proposed organizational restructuring and realignment, reviewing contracts and policies within our respective services, reviewing and providing insight for proposed finance policies and procedures. And I really appreciate Trustee Grant working with me on that, as well as Mr. Finch. And then that concludes, and also some contract negotiations. But for now, that concludes my report.
Okay, Fire Department, Captain Sunaway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Fire Department responded to 32 calls for service for the period August 8th through August 23rd. Our most serious one was an assist to Fort Heights for a structure fire. That incident lasted 3.5 hours. We'd like to remind everyone that school is back in session, so please watch out for children in the street. That'll conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Police Department Chief Malcolm White.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Village Board. For the period of August 13th through tonight, the police department answered 515 calls for service. During that same period, the police department had a total of 16 arrests. I'm not going to, of course, elaborate on any of our investigations concerning they are active, and we are actively utilizing information from residents who did step forward, which we greatly appreciate. For that reason, I want to reiterate, just put it on your calendars. It's the third Thursday of every month. In September, it'll be September 19th. It's our community policing meeting. It's called Chat with the Chief. The residents can really benefit from the attendance of this. There's information that's given there, there's information exchanged, and a lot of the crime prevention tips allow us to assist each other in changing the element and the environment in the village to minimize weeks like this past week. So, Mr. Mayor, Village Board, thank you. That's my report.
Thank you. Public Works Director, Mr. Kevin Weller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few items here. Staff has been working at the fire department. We started doing some floor work over there. The tile floors need to be stripped down and waxed. After we're done there, we'll be moving to the community center and the gym floors. And finally, we'll be working on the village hall, the floor inside the senior center. Staff has also been out at several locations. We've had a very unusual season this year, very wet, and then it dried off for a little while. But we started cutting the detention, retention pond areas and open spaces in Sauk Village. Started at Arrowhead Park and that space, Deer Creek detention behind the Deborah Court area. We started cutting that. It is still wet in that location. We did get stuck in there. We had a backhoe pull us out. But at this point right now, we're going to try to get an arm mower in there to continue. Carlisle Estates detention pond has been cut. 225th Street's detention pond, the bank has been cut. Again, it's wet at the bottom, so we cannot cut the whole area still at this location. Carroll Field and detention area has been cut. Part of the pondment over there is still wet. It will be pushed off until we can get back in there. Staff has also been out pothole patching. Most of the patchwork that we do right now is just temporary, filling in the holes. The equipment that we have purchased through the board's approval and the mayor's approval will help us do more permanent repairs in these locations. Hopefully you'll be seeing that in about 2 weeks, and we'll be grinding out some areas and putting more permanent patchwork in. They will not come out every year like a cold patch or like a pothole will when the weather changes. Staff will be out also. We have our lift truck back in service, so we will be out cutting trees in the 1800 block at 222nd Place. There's currently 9 trees left on that block to take down. They will be starting that tomorrow. Also, we've had some fire hydrant work on Sauk Trail. The staff was out at 1829 Sauk Trail. We repaired a leak first at the main valve. We had some parts that we had ordered for the top half of the hydrant. Those parts are in. That hydrant will be put back together tomorrow. And while we had that hydrant apart, we had another location down the street, 1805 Sauk Trail. Those parts are also in, and that job will start on 9/4, so September 4th. We also, during the water department, we were given a north side shutoff list. That list had 79 on it total. That list has been completed for the shutoff list. Residents just have to pay their bills and we'll turn them back on. Storm sewers, just another concern of storm sewers. Residents, storm sewer cleanup happens during storms and after is needed. All debris comes from residents or Mother Nature. We ask for help to clean anything off the streets or do not put anything in the streets. This will block the manholes. All manhole and debris on the covers we have cleaned up last couple days here during the storm events we've had, so everything in town should have been cleaned up. Light street lights. With the lift truck we had down, we were behind on our trees and our street lights. Currently we have 4 lights that we have repaired. The first light was at 903 Mary Burn. Finding out it was a bad head on the light. It's under warranty, so we'll turn that one in for repair. That light is a new head put back up and it works at this point. 2209 Brookwood, 22507 Brookwood, and 22556 Peachtree. These locations, we placed at this time some shorty caps at these locations. We have some wire issues, but the lights are at least on at this point. A while back, I had told you about some signs we've had. We had 2 signs in Sauk Village that came down. They were welcome signs. One was at McDonald's in Route 30. Those signs were ordered a while back. Our delivery date is September 10th. Once those signs come in, they'll be put back up, and the landscaping will put back into place around those locations. And hopefully next year somebody will be willing to donate some flowers in there and make it look nice. The water upgrade on 221st, as the engineer said, we are done. We replaced 143 feet of water main, 1 fire hydrant with a brand new valve on the hydrant, and 1 main shut-off valve. The boil order in that area was lifted, and all affected homes were delivered the boil order lift. A couple more items here. Staff is working on unpaid water bills. We currently had 6 that we jetted out. Those were shut off, and we dug 5 locations of high bills, and those were shut off. Final item I have is our branch pickup. It will begin on September 2nd. All branches have to be out on September 8th to be picked up. And to speed up our collection, we ask that you stack all branches in the direction of the road, all in one direction. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Community and Economic Development Director, Interim Director, Tanya McCoy.
Thank you, Mayor, Board of Trustees, Madam Clerk. Before I actually get into my main report, I would like to address the investors that are here. I appreciate you coming out and sharing your concerns. By show of hands, how many do we have? Investors. Show of hands, investors. A lot of them left. Oh, okay. By show of hands, how many of you guys actually live in the village? One?
No, better investors.
Yeah, investors. How many investors actually live in the village? Okay, so my point is this. Prior to us instating the current process of the inspections, the quality of the houses here in Sauk Village were so low that I have the federal government contacting me in reference to the certifications that were passed prior to this inspection process. It really bothers me that our inspectors, the state licensed inspectors, have to use cameras so that they can defend themselves against the lies that people tell. The young lady that sat over there and said that the Mexican lady, that he made her pay $250 and then was going to charge her to remediate her property, that is not true.
That is absolutely.
It is not. He actually, this is the story. He actually paid for the test himself and told the lady yesterday, I will remediate it for free just so you can pass. The lady actually cried because of his kindness. Okay, so when you, and we have a tape, we have it on tape. So with that, it wasn't that inspection? Oh, it was a different, okay, so with that being said, not on my watch, I always tell people, political winds shift, the community's needs do not. As a community development director, interim director, I am here for the needs of the community, not for anything other than that, the health and safety of this community. I'm not going to be subjected to federal lawsuits. I'm not going to be subjected to anything other than what's best for this community. I enjoy working with investors. As a matter of fact, one took me to his house yesterday to show me his craftsmanship, to show me how he has increased the values in the properties here in Sauk Village. And that's what you need. Last week, I think Ms. Couch mentioned that someone was shooting next door to her. Well, if you don't have inspections, guess what you think is going to happen? You're going to get people over there shooting. And when you lower the standards, that's what happens. So, yeah, but, well, they got their power prior to this.
Excuse me, just a second.
So, my point is this. I only want to do what's best for this community, period. Now for my report. Yeah, well, now to my report. Okay, so, the demolition, we're gonna do 3 houses, we plan to do 3 houses demoing 3 houses this year. 1619 216th Place, 21768 Carroll Avenue, 21770 Carroll Avenue are all to be demoed this year. The grass cutting, I continuously get requests for grass cutting, and if you have any more requests, feel free to let me know, because I want to see this community in tip-top shape. Yeah, and I do. And so updating on the economic development opportunities, again, I know we have the truck stop that you guys are not in favor of, but it's an opportunity for jobs to come to Sauk Village. Also still working with them to get a grocery store here. So just be patient, one is coming. That ends my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Report of trustees, Public Safety Committee, Trustee Gary Bell.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a meeting this morning, and I'm requesting that the mayor present his EOB for us to. We have to sign it off on it. It's not in use. It's never been passed by the board. The EOB,
Emergency Operating Procedure. So you're saying that the book that TJ did, you okay? Well, I mean, I thought you took copies of it.
I've made copies of it.
Oh,
we have to ratify.
You have to bring that. You have to get an ordinance. It has to go through ordinance. Has to get an ordinance for that.
All right. And I also was presented with a safety manual from Trustee Tom Bush. I'm going back 20 years. That was I found it in my mailbox. So we're going to go through that next. We'll try. It's basic stuff. So we're going to go through that and bring it up to date. And next meeting will be the fourth Thursday or fourth Tuesday next month. I'll get the date. That concludes my report at this time.
Thank you. Public Services Committee, Trustee Bernice Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've been working on 8 ordinances that I want to present for next committee meeting. What can you tell me what date that is? Marvel, do you know? September the 10th. Okay. We're gonna.
That's board meeting, September 10th.
Oh, I'm sorry. So it'll be 17? 17. Okay. Well, I'm going to present these 8 ordinances to the committee for review and discussion on the 17th of September. There are 2 2 resolutions that need to be amended, 4 amendments to the ordinance, and 2 new ordinance that I want to present to the board relating to access to records and permanent separation of payroll and accounts payable. As part of the public service, I have been working with the interim economic developer to get some issue resolved about mold and housing. It brought to my attention, and I want to talk about the $150, but it's going to be on accounts payable, where we had to pay for, residents have to pay for mold in somebody else's house. The inspections are not being done properly, so that's one issue I could relate to as the investors come in and talk. We need to review this inspection process because it's not working for everybody. We're talking about revising ordinance for the shut-off procedures, and we're talking with Finch and also with Cynthia to address these issues, and it's all about revenue and water and infrastructure repair. So those are things that will be ready for review on my report for next September 17th. That's the end of my report.
Budget and Finance Committee, Trustee Roger Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to my committee, as the village administrator mentioned earlier, it still is a work in progress, working on the finance policies and procedures that we have in place. I am still working with him and Mr. French on that to have it completed and have something toward the board, as soon as possible. Right now, the main focus is on the budget. And actually, I do have a concern about a particular line item, and that particular line item happens to be the legal bills. Prior to the month of May, we would spend roughly $5,000 to $10,000 on legal bills a month, roughly $7,000. And I just want to kind of give you a breakdown of how we've been trending since April. So the month of April, we spent $7,000 in legal bills, and that's just for Otis and Sturk, our corporate counsel. For the month of May, we shot up to $16,000 for the month of May. For the month of June, we received invoices for $18,000. For the month of July, which we just received, the legal bill for Otis and Sturk only was $34,000. So now, I'm pretty good at math, and the last 3 months, that is $70,000 in legal bills. And it's honestly ridiculous because a lot of that is self-inflicted when I look at the invoices, and it tells you exactly what we're being charged a service for. Well, this budget that we have not passed yet, if I remember correctly, the total amount for legal bills, and that's including Otis and Sturk and other attorneys who represent us, was, I believe, $200,000. If we stay on track as we are now with just Otis and Sturk alone, we will spend $250,000 in just legal bills alone, and that's unacceptable. And honestly, we cannot afford it. So I would like to challenge the village administrator and the mayor is to put some kind of policy in place that prevents us from spending this much money in legal bills per month, because I mean, honestly, we just can't, we always say we can't afford it, and this is something that is unnecessary. Again, when I'm looking at the detailed invoices, a lot of this is self-inflicted. We doing this ourselves, and it's really not called for. So if we can get back down to $10,000 a month, because there's always going to be some things that we have to ask the lawyers for advice on. I understand that 100%. But to go from $7,000 to $34,000 is kind of ridiculous. And that's all I have. I just want to share that because somebody mentioned it, a little resident mentioned it a while ago, and I hope that we can pass this budget soon with that new kind of recommendation that we do need to increase that line item, because that old number is almost, it's null and void. So that's just my recommendation, and I hope that we can pass the budget pretty soon. And thank you, that's all I have.
Okay. Housing and Intergovernmental Relations, Trustee Sherry Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The last couple housing meetings, some of the investors have come and discussed their concerns. We both were on an email from Mr. Thomas. I would like to take this time to thank Miss Tanya, for coming to our August 14th meeting and trying to address some of their concerns. At the end of the meeting, Ms. Tanya was going to get a hold of SSMMA and put out a search to see what other communities are doing for the housing inspections. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 18th, pending if we get any of the ordinances back so we can review them. That concludes my report.
Okay, that being said, Trustee, we're going to be calling on you also when we get these part of this process of getting the ordinances and the inspections and all that stuff taken care of. Okay. Work, talked about and getting it put in place.
No problem.
Thank you. Our Ordinance Review Committee, Trustee Linda Tye.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I planned on having a meeting next week. We weren't able to meet last month. We didn't have a quorum, so I wanted to meet this month. But unfortunately, I have to have surgery on Thursday, so I don't know how I'm going to be next week. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I will be announcing that, yes, we're going to have an ordinance review. So if there's any ordinances that need to come before us, could you please make sure I get them so I can put them on an agenda? So I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks. And that ends my report.
So let me get that right. You said you're gonna have surgery.
Yeah, Thursday.
Is it gonna be on the other arm?
No, I'm right-handed.
Okay, so you're gonna be the left hand too?
And it's very hard to write this way.
Because I'm just looking at that. I'm sorry to see that like that, but it doesn't look at all. It looks painful.
It was an unfortunate accident.
Is he okay?
Yeah. You should see the other guy. But unfortunately, it ruined my weekend.
Oh.
And it happened out of town, and it was a car accident, and my wrist is snapped. So I have to have surgery, so they're either going to put pins or they're going to put a rod. So yes, I really want to have a meeting next week, but I don't know if I'll really feel up to it, so maybe the following week.
Okay.
But I'm sure by the next meeting I will have one.
Okay.
Where I can announce it.
Thank you. Public Events Committee, Trustee Debbie Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks to everyone that participated in the first annual recycling event sponsored by Cook County 6th District Commissioner Donna Miller and Cook County Sheriff's Office, Tom Dart. Thanks also to the Mentoring Youth Through Technology Group for providing a robotics workshop for our youth. It was exciting to see a pile of Legos turn into a fully functioning robot. This Saturday is the end of the summer bash at the McConaughey Public Library from 11 to 3. This is a fundraiser. The entry fee is $5 and will include a hot dog and drink. There will be a bounce house, food, prizes, games, books, giveaways, raffles, and a special guest. Crossroads Church, located at 23001 South Torrance Avenue, is looking for 5 more blood donors for the blood drive this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Walk-ins are welcome. 1 pint of blood could actually be a lifesaver for someone. The first 100 kids will also receive assorted school supplies at the McConaughey Public Library's Summer Bash. It's not too late to register for the Labor Day Parade. The parade lineup will begin behind Popeyes at 11:30 a.m. and kick off at 1 p.m., starting down Jeffrey Avenue to Sauk Trail and ending at the Village Hall. The corn and dog roast, as the mayor said, is going to take place on the September 7th, Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. The awards will also be given after the parade for a variety of categories. Please like the Sauk Village Public Events Committee on Facebook. I would also like to welcome Village Administrator Chris Williams and thank both him and the Interim Finance Director for their efforts in working with everyone to bring forth the final budget. Hopefully, we were hoping for next week. Concessions have been made by everyone involved in the budget process. I, for one, am looking forward to moving forward rather than paying any attention to all the rants of the fake Sauk Village, Illinois Facebook page. I would welcome anyone to meet with me or any other elected official to get official information, actual information. All departments have faced cuts and will not be able to get everything they need or want. Over $600,000 was removed from the requests from the departments from the original budget hearings until now. We have severe financial issues that did not just begin with this administration, but have continued to be ignored. We need stability and accountability, both of which are severely lacking. Once again, we are several months, 1 year plus, behind in our financial records, including bank recs. We will be late with the audit and most likely dinged for the same issues as previous years. A part-time finance director and no one on staff with the ability to assist with keeping those records updated will now cost the village in the amount to be capped at $55,000. Hopefully, having a village administrator in place will get us back on track. Union negotiations are still ongoing with no resolution in sight, especially due to the amount of grievances that have been filed in the past 2 years that were left unresolved. Non-union, full and part-time employees replaced union employees, and we have part-timers which could potentially exceed the hours that would entitle them to IMRF. That has to be monitored very closely now. The mayor refers to excessive costs of recent legal bills. The trustees are faced with finding things out piecemeal that require legal guidance, things that should not have occurred or that should have been resolved prior to now. For example, Trustee Brewer inquired about the Osland grant money that the village received but was unable to use due to the contractor backing out. Where is that money? Where is the money that was paid to the contractor for the work that was never performed? The interim finance director can find no records. Now, $120,000 needs to be paid back in 30 days. Excessive legal bills? I could not understand why a trustee had to sue the mayor over his non-response to FOIAs until now. I myself have sent several emails to the mayor and received no response. Trustees should not have to beg or FOIA for information, much less have to pay lawyers on both sides to settle these disputes. The judge has ordered that the village administrator should assume his position. The village attorney covered how this expense is covered as long as the position is included in the upcoming budget, which it will be. I have just been informed that we do not have a balanced budget to present. Between the union negotiations and retro payments and the Osland grant, we need to cut approximately $200,000 from the departments or use the water fund, use reserve money, or raise taxes. A forensic audit is definitely warranted for the next budget cycle. This is a budget on paper only, all projected revenue and expenses. No wiggle room for any extraordinary circumstances. Please be patient as we work through this transition. Thank you.
Reports of committees and commissions, Senior Advisory Council, Chairman Mr. Emmett Farmer.
Thank you, Mayor, Village Board. Our next meeting for the Senior Advisory Council is Thursday, September 12th, at 5 o'clock. All are welcome. Please don't forget, game night is every first and third Friday in the Senior Center. Bidwoods and other games are available. Our day at the casino has been rescheduled for September 27th from 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. The cost is $35. Please contact Carol Coleman for more information. Her number is 773-426-0176. Also, come join our seniors as we have our first potluck September 18th, 2019 in the Senior Center. For RSVPs and what meal you're going to bring, please contact Deborah Coney at 708-710-4564. And we have some flyers in the back. And just pretty much give a rebuttal to Mr. Williams earlier concerning bluegrass and Mr. Morgan, who failed getting the key. He actually sent a picture to one of our committee members. And the committee member shared it with the committee. And our recommendation, we know Mr. Morgan's old and some other seniors that use the Senior Center are older or if they're doing rentals. But we suggested or recommended that they go, most of them drive in or have someone drive them in. They can drive to the police station, get the key, and drive over to the Senior Center. When they're through, same thing, take the key back, drive back over there, instead of walking across the parking lot. So that was our recommendation, just to answer that. And that concludes our report. Thank you.
Thank you. New business. I will entertain a motion to approve payroll and accounts payable and disbursements in the amount of $439,837.17.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Trustee Bell, second by Trustee Jazinski. Any questions?
No, that's good.
Tied. Okay, I shouldn't.
Wait a minute.
I have questions. Look, I guess you have some. Maybe you jumped in right quick.
Mr. Mayor, I guess I really want to ask a couple of questions about some invoices that were on the accounts payable, but I need to separate them out. So can I get this, I guess, motion in or rescinded? This is a question I'm asking.
Okay, is your question in regards to the motion?
Yes, I'm asking you, can we go back and rescind?
No.
They can.
You can't ask that question.
What?
You can't ask that question. You said there was a motion and a second. If your question is in regard to that motion a second, then that's one thing. But if you're asking to have the motion rescinded, that's not.
Well, I'm asking, how would I get, okay.
There's a motion and second on the floor, so you have to go through with that. You cannot go back. You have to go through with that motion that's on the floor. So it has to be, if it's voted down, then okay, but if there's a motion and a second on the floor, I have to entertain that. I can't go back and ask them to take that away. It was moved by Trustee Bell and second by Trustee Todd. Are there any other questions in regards to?
What? I'm getting conflicting information over here and stuff, so.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Abstain?
Trustee Grant.
Yes.
Trustee Jazinski.
Yes.
Trustee Todd.
Yes.
Motion is carried. I will entertain a motion to approve a resolution to authorize waiver of the competitive bid process for the acquisition of pre-audit accounting services and acquisition of the pre-audit services pursuant to a proposal submitted.
Second.
Moved by trustee Williams, second by trustee Grant. Any questions?
Yes, question. So in the ordinance here, it does say, the resolution, it does say that we have a cap at 55,000. So what do we do, and I'm saying I hope that this won't happen, but if we get to a point where we're almost approaching the $55,000 mark and we're not done, are we gonna come back and re-amend this resolution? Is there an agreement here that we do that? I'm not saying we'll get there, but I just want to know what will happen. Because if they're on the last 3 or 4 bank accounts to reconcile or whatever, and we at that $55,000 maximum, I just want to make sure they can finish their job.
If the resolution is passed, and the resolution states that it is 55,000, if you're going to exceed that, then you have to amend that before it gets to that point, and that means you have to come back for the board and ask to amend it to X, Y, and Z to continue that. But that's the only thing you can do is amend it. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, I'm assuming that the $55,000 is in the budget for that purpose, so we would have to come back and ask for amendment to find out where we're going to get additional money to pay for additional services if we do that, correct?
Well, yes, what it is I'm assuming that it's in the budget too. I haven't seen it. However, if you have a resolution stating that you can only go so far, if you wanted to exceed that, then you have to have an amendment to the resolution in order to make that happen. So yes, you have to come back for the board. I'm sorry, the board has to agree and ask for an amendment to X amount. Any other questions? Madam Clerk?
Trustee Bell.
Yes.
Trustee Brewer.
Yes.
Trustee Grant.
Yes.
Trustee Jazinski.
Yes.
Trustee Todd.
Yes.
Trustee Williams.
Yes.
Motion carried. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.